Okay, so I'll start with a bit of introduction. As you can see, this is a slightly different setup from what we normally have. We've got a lovely panel of people who have kindly given up their time to talk to us about their mentoring experience. So just to remind you that you're watching the latest series of MIDAS, Master Inholders Developing Additional Skills, which is available free of charge, thanks to the Master Inholders. And the Master Inholders exist to promote excellence in hotel management. So we've got some very established and experienced people to talk to you this afternoon. We've and we'll introduce each other in a minute, but we've followed this series doing some work on career development, which was our first workshop a couple of weeks ago. So looking at career development, and then out of career development, picking out this notion of mentoring, so that we can really explore how mentoring fits into a career development program and movement. If you're watching this, if hotels are your background, then we'll happily find you a mentor through our My Mentor program with the Master Inholders. If you're watching this and hotels are not your background, but you've got a wider hospitality interest, then we can also pair you up with the Institute of Hospitality. So that's this afternoon. We're talking very much about mentoring, and we've got 3 pairs of mentors and mentees with us, giving up their time to talk to you. So let me introduce, or let me start the ball rolling. So Peter Lewis and James Hilary Jones, you're together in a mentor and mentee pair, aren't you? So please, would you introduce yourselves so you can see who you are?
No, so you go first, James.
Well, how kind, typical hoteliers, look at us. I'm James Hilary Jones. I'm the Managing Director of Green Close Hotels. We have Carey's Manor and the Montague Arms in the New Forest, and the Imperial Hotel in Llandudno. And I'm just around the corner from Peter, which has been very convenient. Peter, over to you.
Yeah, no, we've been very lucky actually. Hi, my name's Peter. I'm the DGM at the Pig in the Forest. Some of you may have heard of the Pig before. There's 8 of us now, and we tend to be south of England.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And then the next pair we have Michelle Malla and James O'Keefe. So over to you guys, Michelle.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. Michael Mella, I'm the General Manager at Barnsley House. I've been the manager here for about 12, 13 years now. You get to the point when you stop counting, but still enjoying the ride. A lovely little property, and I had the pleasure of meeting James a few months ago now, and enjoyed our mentoring relationship since.
Thank you.
I'm James O'Keefe. I'm the Director of Operations at Danesfield House Hotel and Spa. We're a small independent hotel just outside London, 54 beds currently, and I've been here for 2.5 years, I think.
Thank you. Lovely. Good. Thank you very much. And last, but by no means least, Jonathan Raggett and Nitin Ramtree. So Jonathan, you go first. You're very red.
I'm very red, absolutely. So hi, everybody. Delighted to be on this call. I'm the Managing Director of Red Carnation Hotels. We have 20 hotels globally, and I've now been with the company for some 21 years. And when I joined, we had just the 3 properties, so I've been part of the growth of this family-run, family-owned business that we are today, which is primarily luxury 5-star boutique-sized hotels. So really pleased that at my stage I can give something back a bit to the business as well. And from a mentoring perspective, Nitin and myself have had some great conversations, which we look forward to sharing a bit later on this call. So with that, over to you, Nitin.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jonathan. Good afternoon. I'm Nitin Ramtree. I am the hotel manager at the London Hilton on Park Lane, which is the flagship hotel for Hilton. I have been in this hotel for 4 years, and I've worked with Hilton for just over 12 years. And I must add that I'm very fortunate to have Jonathan as my mentor. And as we progress, you'll hear we've had some amazing discussions, and I'm very pleased to be here.
Thank you. We're very pleased you're here as well. Thank you very much for giving up your time. So can we start there, Nitin, with your experiences of being mentored by Jonathan? What are you especially valuing? Because you're all still in process, aren't you? You've been,
yeah,
we're still in the process of the mentoring relationship continuing. So
yes.
will you tell us a little bit about what it's doing for you?
Sure. For me, I have worked with a corporate organization like Hilton for a very long time. It's a big global organization, whereas Jonathan heads a chain of independent hotels which are owned independently, and which brings a very different perspective to our relationship. Because for me, it's very easy for someone to be in Hilton or a corporate organization and be in their own bubble. Hilton is great at running hotels, but for me to really further my skills and increase my knowledge, having someone like Jonathan gives me a totally different perspective of things. And it's interesting to see when we have the conversations that we have exactly the same challenges, very similar challenges. We think very similarly, but how we execute things is very different. In a corporate organization, it takes longer, whereas in Jonathan's organization, it's one phone call. So it's been very interesting.
Okay, so very different approaches. Thank you. Jonathan, how would you add to that in terms of the value of the relationship?
When I speak to Nitin, I realise that Red Carnation Hotels don't have enough standards and procedure manuals. I need to get my act together and be better at it, because, again, from the relationship we're having, it is very interesting to see how a very well respected company like Hilton go about doing things. So if we take the whole COVID pandemic situation, some of the procedures that they've had in place, etc., and what they've done has actually been quite interesting for me to discover and learn as to what we do too. But from my perspective, without wishing to be too sycophantic here, Nitin kind of said we have some robust conversations. I think, as we alluded to, that we both say how we feel on it. I think if you want to get the best out of a mentor-mentee relationship, there needs to be a trust, confidence between the two of you, so that can be had. And I'm perhaps jumping a few steps forward here, Hilary, but I think from a mentor's perspective, it's very important that you don't just give the answer straight back to the mentee, and you have the mentee really tell you what they think perhaps they should do, or the right way to do it, as opposed to how necessarily I do it, which incidentally might not always be the right way as well. So I think we've certainly got that, where Nitin will ask one or two questions, and me of him as well, and what they're doing, etc., to get the very best relationship. But I think, again, a healthy respect, honesty, trust, and not always just giving answers, having the mentor ask mentee again how they would do it is really important. So it is very much in the infancy stage for our relationship on this. And I think we both want to continue and go forwards. We both get plenty from it. It's just a bit confusing now. If we've been doing this pre-pandemic, it would have been in some ways much easier, but we've all got, as Nitin also said, the same challenges right now. None of us can find the right talent or enough of the talent. We all struggle to even retain our talent right now in this world. So conversations do kind of dominate the whole subject of people, which of course is our most important asset. But for everybody on this call and everybody listening, they'll know that hospitality right now and the people situation has never been like this before. And I'm probably the oldest person on this call, been in the business some 40 years now, and we'll come through it because we're fighters and we'll make a plan on it. But it sure is tough. And I think, again, perhaps a mentor-mentee relationship's never been as important, because, again, repeating what Nitin says, so many of his challenges are the same that I have, and vice versa. I'll shut up and hand back to you, Hilary.
I'd love to come back to you in a minute about the trust and confidence thing that you mentioned, and the fact that you seem to be very balanced in learning something as well. Often the notion of mentoring is that the mentee learns something and the mentor already knows it all, but I think we're going to find that that's not necessarily the case. So James, I can see you nodding. Will you pick that one up for me?
Happily. I mean, Hilary, I've been so lucky that Peter's located just around the corner from where I'm based, and so it's been very easy to get together, and thankfully not on Zoom. It's always a face-to-face, and Peter and I have gone out for lunch. We've tried different hotels and restaurants in the area to have a look at other food and beverage setups, but I'd credit Peter instantly with his honesty. We seem to have been able to establish a very easy relationship. Peter's been very open, and we've met on a monthly basis, albeit in the last month I think we've missed one, Peter, and we're due to get together this week.
Yeah.
because of the pressures of all that's going on. And as Jonathan alluded to, I found it really useful talking to Peter about the PIG and how they've adapted to all things COVID and some of the policies they've rolled out. So in fact, we've shared an awful lot of information between us about how each business is running, and I found that really useful.
Gosh, that's very interesting that you're so geographically close together. That it sometimes works out like that, sometimes not. Peter, let's.
Yeah, no, it's actually been really lucky it has worked out like that, because James has just been completely round the corner to me. And actually, you know, in these times where everyone's been on Zoom, it's actually been quite refreshing to have James there and meet face to face. Because sometimes, you know, like we've all had Zoom calls, they go so far, but when you're there and you can actually see the person and body language, you know, helps a lot. But yeah, no, as James said, like the mentoring program, I had a baseline to what I wanted to get from it. So I'm very green in the hospitality industry. I've only been with the PIG for 3-4 years. So a lot of times I can be very ambitious. I can be, you know, sometimes I don't give myself enough credit. And actually that's where James has been phenomenal for me. He's grounded me, or he's gone, no, you're selling yourself too short. You know, don't look at it like this. And so obviously, yeah, from the get-go, I was completely honest with where I want to go and how I want to do it. And, you know, rightly so, James was like, well, you know, just take a breath. We're going to get there. We're going to get there together. And let's go at this logically and go, right, how we, and, you know, to have James's knowledge, vast knowledge on everything hospitality has been an absolute pleasure to have him there and to have him talk through. And, you know, one of the biggest things was because I haven't been in the hospitality industry for long, my palate I haven't got a great palate yet. And James very kindly, every month we go out, he takes me to a different place and he helps me through the dishes. He tells me about the dishes. He says how to taste it. So we know, I hope I speak for both of us here, but I've really made a great bond with James, and it's something that I will carry on for years to come. I'll always look up to him, and I'll always, yeah.
Oh, lovely, thank you. I think we'd all nod at that one. We've all got people in our lives who have helped us along and given us a helping hand along the way, and that's really like why hospitality is so important. People around doing that. Lovely, thank you. I want to come back to you in a minute about your baseline of starting, but let's hear from Michael and James first. What's your experience, guys?
You want to go first, James? Or
yeah, so
you go first.
It's been really refreshing that we've had quite a relaxed relationship, so that there's been no pressure on either side that if something pushes back or we can't make a call or we have to move stuff because of what's going on in our businesses, that there's just no pressure at all. So we might speak a little bit less frequently, but when we do pick up on things, it's very, very quick. It's very, very easy. And personally, I get a huge amount out of the conversations, not necessarily about the business or how the hotel is doing, but more for my personal development, helping kind of get a better understanding of what I value, who I am as a leader, and how I can translate those things into future roles and things like that, which has been hugely beneficial for me. To have, I mean, I'm in a fairly senior position at the hotel, so there's only so far you can go up to kind of have these conversations. So to have someone with Michael's experience, 13 years as a general manager, to be able to kind of guide me with these things has been invaluable for me.
Good, thank you. So for you mentees, how important is it that your mentor is not your line manager or in your line of command? How does that help you? How important is that?
I think it makes a massive difference. I think Nitin alluded to kind of that trust thing with Jonathan, and again, there's no pressure on the relationship. You can be very frank with what you say or what you think, and there's no kind of fear of reprisal, or you might be worried that someone might get upset or they might tell anyone else. It's very kind of enclosed in that space. It's like a safe space. Good. Particularly in senior roles, is a really good space to have, I would say.
May I add as well from a mentor perspective, and Jonathan hinted at that earlier, the level of trust, once the trust is established, I think it is a two-way learning street. And I think for for senior management, we love the idea of junior managers in our team coming and knocking on our door and tell us really what's happening on the floor. Actually, they're probably afraid. Mentoring actually establish an opportunity for senior leaders in organizations to actually hearing from, I hope you don't mind me saying, guys, most of you are a little bit younger than us, and telling us how you think, how you feel about daily life. And because no matter what we think, how clever we think we are, actually, when it comes to translated, humans' activities into business plan, you have to accept what the reality of the time is. And you are the present and the future. And we are, I can't use that expression live, but I think Jonathan knows what I'm into and what I'm referring to.
Thank you. So let's explore this question of trust, because it's talking about it, it's kind of out there, it's something that's really important within this relationship. How do you establish trust? If I was being mentored, if I was a mentee, how would I go about establishing trust with my mentor?
I think for me, it's about being honest, making your expectations very clear. Okay. Before you speak to your mentor, it's really important to know that what you want from the relationship and how do you proceed with the relationship. It's like, I have the expression of safe hands, and I tell my team, your guests should feel, your team members should feel they are in safe hands. And it's exactly the same with Jonathan. I feel I'm in safe hands, that zone when I'm with Jonathan. I know I can say, whatever I want, I can be honest, and it's all safe. So it's having your expectations clear and being honest goes a long way in creating that.
Thank you. Would anyone add to that or embellish?
I think perhaps Hilary, to add to that, I think these relationship mentor-mentee also take a few months, because trust takes time to build up. It's like respect, that also takes time. Given that, you have to earn respect, as we all know on this call. So I think as the relationship progresses, I think that trust becomes even stronger, as long as it's going both ways. And knowing the two other mentors in this call very well, you've got three people here that would definitely be behind and very supportive of anything the mentee would say. So I think, again, I don't think it's open door first day. There's trust there. I think it happens over a period of time, which clearly is happening in this case with the six of us on this call.
Thank you.
Can I
please do, James. Yeah.
I was just going to say that I'd credit the master inn holders too, that there's a rather good SOP that was available prior to the process that runs through the exact expectations of the programme. And I think Peter and I both found that rather useful. It just guides you through it neatly. You understand exactly what you're supposed to be trying to achieve. And I found that very helpful.
Good, thank you. And there's a bit of a contract as well with that. There's a sort of soft contracts and agreements that you can go through and look at sort of what you're asking for as a mentee and what you can accept and provide as the mentor. Was there anything missing from that you would like to have seen added in?
Not that I noticed, no. I just think it was a well-written document, and it was good to have that structure at the start of the journey. No, I think it was a good tool.
Good, thank you. Now, Peter, you said earlier on about being clear about your baseline. So tell me what you meant by being clear about your baseline.
So I was like, kind of, as soon as I went there, obviously, thanks to the master holders in the document, it kind of lays out, like I've got my one in front of me. Obviously, it was like the mentee's goals for the overall mentor relationship. And that kind of almost starts off with, right, okay, so before I go to to my mentor, let's start brainstorming to myself of what actually is it that I want? Where do I want to go? How do I want to progress? And all these ideas come flooding out. And then I wrote them down. And then James kind of narrowed it down to me. And then from the first meet, I then went back and then went on to the success measures, and then started to develop what the success measures were. And then again, went back to James and agreed it with James, and then sent it over to Wallace. And all that came from obviously the master and holders agreement. And and so like when me and James first met, I walked in there and I said, I want my palette to evolve. I want to, what am I missing as a DGM? to a GM? You know, what characteristics, what skills do I need to develop from my CV, from the conversations we have, to get me to that next level? And then I also said, you know, I opened up about my palate, and I said, at the moment, I'm not able to go out and try foods like, you know, some others would be able to. And kind of that created an initial bond between me and James, because James could also, you know, I've been there, I've been in your position as a DGM, I've been very ambitious myself and want to get to that GM role, and my knowledge of what I've gone through, we can portray onto you and make sure you do it the correct way, and make sure that you're not going to go, you know, from DGM straight into GM, and then you're suddenly here and you're now this big fish and you're like a rabbit in headlights. It's all that kind of personal knowledge that we shared that have allowed us to create such a bond over these last 6-7 months.
Good, lovely. Thank you. And how often do you meet? How often do you meet up?
Yeah, once a month. Obviously,
Once a month.
last month we didn't get to meet because, as James was saying, like I'm sure the rest of everyone else can feel it here. It's just been you know, we kind of thought after lockdown we'd ease after the last couple of months, but no, it just keeps on giving.
Good. And what's your time frame for your mentoring relationship?
Time frame was a year, but I think me and James were both clear at the first, you know, the second meet that, well, if it goes on, it goes on. We're not going to, you know, the idea is a year, but we're not really going to give it a time frame. We're just going to let things roll, and they can come to the end when they come to the end, and then we may find something else to start going on.
Good, lovely. So you can, and you can always keep that relationship going, even if the actual mentoring bit
Exactly.
is done.
And like I'm sure with the rest of the mentor and mentees here, the relationship you build from this isn't just going to be a year. It's going to be for the rest of our careers. I'm sure I'll always be in contact with James, and James vice versa.
Lovely. Good. That's mentoring at its best. That's good. So a couple of your other guys, in terms of structuring and how you structure it, what's working for you? What advice would you give me if I was going to be mentored by somebody in terms of structuring? And James?
From a mentee perspective, I think that James mentioned that document from the master in-holders on the way in was really, really useful, because it allows you to set the boundaries. And from our side, we both knew the positions we were in with the business and everything that was going on. And as I said, we perhaps meet less often, but there was an immediate acceptance of that. So we didn't put pressure on the relationship, and it is just something that grows over time, which is really, really useful, I think.
Good. And
I think from my point of view, I think we need to always understand that it's a relationship where you are responsible for your own development. So it's very important that you plan and prepare before you're meeting with your mentor. You know, they are giving their time voluntarily, so it's really important that you don't waste their time. And at the end of the day, it's up to me. It's my responsibility what I want from it, and Jonathan is there to support me. So it's really important that I have everything written down and planned before I meet Jonathan.
Thank you. Yes. Do you think that's widely understood, that responsibility of the mentee to make it work?
I think, well, I cannot comment on that, but I think it's really important that mentees do understand that. And, you know, they should be prepared to be open to feedback, to be pushed outside their comfort zone, because, you know, if you're discussing something, you know, there's a reason why you have a mentor. And to make the most of it, you have to be open to feedback and be ready for being challenged.
Good, thank you. What about your mentors? You seem to be learning from your mentees as much as they're learning from you. Is that something that's pleasurable for you? Did you expect that?
No, I'll happily take this one first, Hilary. Yeah, I think any good manager, mentor is always open-minded and trying to learn at the same time. I think that's just the way it goes. I think, as I mentioned prior, we've all been living, whether you're a mentor or mentee, whether you're 40 years or 4 years. I think Lewis spoke on his role here. These are brand new times for us all right now. None of us have been through this. So I think there's never been a better time to learn from one another. And in my case, with Nitin, you know, he's running a huge monster of a hotel there on Park Lane, compared to my very small properties. And I've really enjoyed learning some of the protocols that he and Hilton have introduced for this property, which I can learn from. And as Nitin said before, bits and pieces that, you know, we're doing and perhaps they're not. That said, and I guess it's quite reassuring for everybody. You know, no one's doing anything greatly different because we're all going through this. And but it's, I think, quite reassuring that even if you're not perhaps learning something brand new, you're getting reassurance that you are doing the right thing. So I think, you know, that's also part of the learning, even if it's something that it isn't brand new. I mean, I think one of those fascinating things, which has got nothing to do with mentor-mentee necessarily, but it's this whole mask situation in hotels at the moment. It seems to be like 50-50 almost. You go to restaurants, etc., where people aren't wearing, not guests, I'm talking staff here, wearing masks, where in many hotels there are. And I think it's those kind of subject matters. An example, you know, what are you doing? What are you doing? It's not going to change the world, the whole thing, but it's quite interesting to find out from one another what others are doing and get that that expertise, I guess, as to what's going on.
Yeah, thank you. Has anything unexpected happened for any of you? Anything that you weren't expecting, either bonus or benefit or the other way around? Anything, what would you say was unexpected that you weren't?
Well, Jonathan has invited me to his next trip to Miami,
Oh,
which was very unexpected.
lucky you. I'll
No,
carry your bag.
That would be nice, Jonathan.
I know I'm feeling jet lag, but I don't remember that.
I don't think there was anything unexpected in our relationships with James and how our mentoring relationships has developed. I still think that, you know, the having the ability to share experiences, life experiences. I think, particularly now, as Jonathan made references to the fact, actually, it's a plain level field now, because we're all coming through, you know, COVID and all the challenges related to COVID and Brexit and all the rest. I don't think we need to go over there again. But the fact how we approach life and the weight of life experiences that can actually help overcoming the day-to-day challenges that works are thrown at you. You know, that's something that I feel is actually a kind of moral duty for people, you know, have been through life, to share with the younger ones. Sometimes they actually don't feel alienated, isolated, because we've been through there ourselves, and right now I think actually accepting, you know, the status quo and trying to actually overcome by thinking slightly differently, perhaps, about the future is something that you know, we can facilitate, really. And as I said, I go back to what I said earlier, that in a mentoring relationship, I think it's actually slightly easier to be able to be honest, upfront, and frank about things, because you don't have, you know, the hang-ups of, you know, when you are in the business, where frankly, even as a leader, sometimes, you know, you need to be careful what you say, how you say it, and, you know, because that might have negative repercussions, not on yourself as a person, but as the business, really. So in that sense, I think being able to frankly share experiences and learning from it, I think is beneficial to both.
Thank you. Yeah.
Just to add to that, Michael said something really, really small to me in an email the other day that made a huge difference. I'd put an out of office on that was like, I'm absolutely not checking emails while I'm away from the hotel. And I was a little bit on edge about it because it was busy. I should do all these things. I didn't email him back for 3 days. And I was like really apologetic. He said, no, don't worry. Fantastic. Well done for looking after your mental health and being away from the hotel and finding time for yourself. And even that just little brief kind of life lesson and reassurance gave me a little bit of confidence, made me feel a lot better about what I'd done.
Okay. Do you think there's a change in leadership and how we express ourselves and how we put ourselves out there in the world post, well, I don't know if we are post-COVID, but you know what I mean? Has that made a big difference in terms of?
I'd say so. One thing I've noticed is how many staff now have dogs, and there seem to be very few dogs with the team beforehand. And I've got quite a few staff now that have said, can I have a blended approach to work? And this is more people that work in office jobs and things. And we've become a lot more flexible. I think pre-pandemic, it was almost unthinkable that people would work at home quite on a regular basis. And now it's just very much part of a normal working week that a certain person won't be in the office on a Monday and Tuesday, the dog sitting, and then they're back in on Wednesday. And I think it's nothing like an employment crisis to really focus the mind on what's important for individuals rather than you as a business dictating. So I see this pandemic as a massive shift in the way that we work, and it's a good thing.
I think the interest in the individual is such a demand now that we didn't really have before. Before, you could sometimes get away with like asking people if they had a nice weekend and good, yeah, let's crack on then. But now you have to actually stop and listen. It's a big demand on the leadership skills that we're developing.
And I think for the older people on this call, which I'm certainly one of them, I think it's a case of a good leader waking up and understanding where we are on James's points there, because my mind, if I'm absolutely honest, is a little bit dinosaur. I've got a head office team of about 70 people, got some glorious new offices, and they've been empty or close to empty even now because people are working productively from home. And I think you have to go with it. We've got a very talented marketing team that can do their work from home, but all this pre-pandemic, I would have thought that was really alien and people wouldn't really have asked for it either. But as a leader, as a manager, if I say, no, everybody needs to be in the office at these times, Monday through Friday, then actually I will lose a lot of talent. So I think we've had to wake up to the fact of flexibility, the dogs James is talking about, to make sure that you are giving those, because right now, and whether this is forever, I don't know, but right now, if you've got some talent and you're in hospitality, you can go wherever you want, which is great for the young person because the opportunities have never been greater, I don't think. But us leaders here on this call, we need to make sure that clearly the job's done. I mean, this is the balance. The job has to be done. We've never been busier. But the idea of getting some of those hours done at home has to be embraced, I think, and needs to be checked in a certain way. And there are a lot of people that do work from home, I think, that actually do much more that way because they haven't got the traveling to do and the challenges that come with that, and are probably working into the evening still trying to get stuff done. So you can get more from it. But I think that's a really good point. I think as managers now, and the older you are, you better make sure you embrace it, you learn it, you get on with it. Otherwise, younger people will go somewhere else where they've got managers that will do that for them.
It takes a bit of courage, doesn't it, to do stuff that's never been done before, or do stuff differently, or do stuff that's not been done before. And also the fact, I think, what I'm finding is that we don't always know what the answers are. We just need to try something out without really knowing. Like in pre-COVID, we'd kind of have it fairly well worked out. But now it's actually quite difficult to sometimes to be certain about a decision, for example.
Yeah, it absolutely is. And, people have had time to adjust here as to what they want to do now, opposed to what they were doing. Because if you were a member of the waiting team or bar team or whatever it may be, just every day you got up, you did the job, got up, did the job. And it was just, you did it. Whereas getting that break now gave people a time to think, actually, do I want to do that? I like the new dog I just bought or whatever it may be, and evaluate exactly what they do. So I think it's much tougher now for a manager out there than it was, because as we've just said, you've got to be able to listen to these things and not just expect people to do it. You've got to work with them and also get the job done, because aside from that, I think from my perspective, I would say 50% of our guests that come and stay with us now are our loyal guests that are so pleased to be back. They love our people that work. They're wonderful, wonderful guests. But the other half, the expectations are just so high. It's almost this feeling of self-entitlement. They've missed birthdays, they've missed anniversaries, and they're coming in and they're going to tell you they've done it, and they're going to tell you what they want. And that puts a lot of stress on the team as well. So you've got this whole thing going. It's a really interesting cocktail of things going on right now that you have to master as a manager. So it's tricky.
So there's a lot of people needing a lot of things. So if you're the mentee, James, Peter and Nitin, how do you see yourself being able to put back and perhaps mentoring someone else? Would you feel confident in being a mentor for somebody now, yet, later? How are you
Yes,
finding it?
absolutely. I mean, from my point of view, I would absolutely be happy. I do a lot of mentoring within Hilton for a graduate program and elevator program. But I think, things are changing so quickly now. And I think with the industry, there are so many young people who come in the industry and they actually need a mentor because it's very dynamic. It's not what it used to be. There are career opportunities here and there. There's so many different things happening and people need to understand, and people are anxious about what's next. What's my next move? Is this the right move for me, or is this the right thing to do? So I think we do need more mentors out there.
Good, thank you. So
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, no, I'd say the same. I'd also being a mentee as well. I think we would be very easy to put ourselves in the position if we were mentors because we've been there, we've done that. We know we can compare to what they're going through to what we've gone through. We've spoken, me and James have spoken out various scenarios at work. He's advised me on it. He's said, well, how are you going to go about and do it? And those whole experience I've developed now, I would love to share with a mentee in the future. Yeah.
Good. And if you're having a good experience, it's easier to pass that on, isn't it? Okay. I'm very conscious that my panel is all male, so I just wanted to very welcome that you are and very grateful for giving up your time. But we do also have many women general managers and women senior people out there who are mentoring for us as well. And I wanted to share with you that mentor was a person. He was the original mentor was a man who looked after Telemachus in the Trojan Wars when his father went to war. But in times of trouble, a mentor could morph into the goddess of wisdom, Athena. So when times got tough, he just morphed into a woman, which is quite a nice bit of mentoring. So if you're watching this, you think, oh, they're all guys. It works with women as well. We've got a lot of very good pairs as well. It was just like who we could get and people being busy. But we're very happy to have the people that we've got. If you were to describe one benefit that you've got as a mentee, so if you can sort of what would that be? What's your 1 or 2 word description of the benefits that you're getting?
Probably clarity.
Okay.
As I mentioned earlier, just helping me straighten out a few things about who I am as a leader, what I value and what I look for in my work to find fulfillment and things like that, what motivates me and what drives me to be better. I think Michael helped me bring a real clarity for that. Probably in our first conversation, he challenged me to come back and list my values and things like that, and that was really beneficial for me. And the beauty of it was it kind of hit at exactly the right time. It was just the right piece of information at the right time, and it sparked off a chain of events in my head that just really kind of sorted me out for 2 or 3 months. That was very, very useful.
Good. Would you have expected to be talking about values and things as personal as that when you started?
Maybe not so early. I'm slightly introverted, so usually it takes me a little bit longer with those things. But as I said, we kind of hit it off straight away, so I felt very comfortable having those types of conversations fairly on in our relationship.
Good. And how far through are you?
Probably about 6 or 7 months, I would say.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say 6 or 7 months. I think we'd put 18 months on our form, a year to 18 months. But again, as everyone else has said, it's a relationship, and we're both in hospitality, so it's something that you're going to nurture and develop over time. And it's just nice to know that even if we don't speak for a month, 2 months, if I really need it, I can pick the phone up and call him, and it's not a problem when we pick up from where we left off, which I think is a sign of quite a strong relationship.
Good.
And also, if I may add, we are actually overdue a jolly, because I think there's only so much Zooms that we can have.
My head is terrible. I need to buy a lot of
I envy James and Peter. They've been able to manage and go out for lunch every month. So
It's, I think, having a mentee that wants to develop a palate.
I think we're going to do one of those 2 lunches, 2 dinner sessions one day, James.
It's worked very well for me. I love eating, Michael, as you know.
That was a given, wasn't it? I'd like to improve my palate. Yeah.
I love it. Absolutely love that.
Lovely, thank you. And Peter, how are you doing that? How are you? What's the process of improving your palate? What does James do with you?
So something that's very simple as, right, look at a dish, visually see it, and then try the components individually, and then pair them up to then gradually try the dish together. But it was something as simple as that I wouldn't have the confidence just to go up to the head chef here and ask, are you able to take me through this dish? And due to James teaching me, I now have the confidence to go, right, chef, why does this dish work? Why does X, Y, and Z go together on the plate? Is it something traditional? Is it something that you've come up? And yeah, it was so I could have, as a DGM, so I could have more of an understanding of what's going out on the plate. So, to hold discussions with guests, and again, to hold the discussion with chefs, to be very clear on, actually, no, I don't, me personally, I don't think it goes, or to a thing of, oh, that's interesting, nice, okay. Yeah, it was something that I've always wanted to do. I've come from a reception back of house kind of not F&B based, so it was always something I wanted to tick off, and to have James to take me through the kind of awkward bits I wouldn't want to ask, to then build up confidence, to then now to have full-blown discussions with chef and actually contribute towards dishes.
Brilliant, thank you. Have any of you had unexpected changes? Have you got into being mentored and then realised that you didn't know what you didn't know, so you'd add that to your list? Have you had any surprises?
Well, only a pleasant surprise to have someone like Jonathan as my mentor. So I'm really pleased to have someone outside of Hilton, outside the whole corporate umbrella, to bounce things through. And Jonathan always gives me great advice. I reach out to him time and time again for advice on different things, and we have some discussions. And I know Jonathan always makes jokes about his age, but I think he's one of the most forward-thinking hotelier I've ever met. So I've benefited a lot. And as everyone else, I think it's going to be a long relationship and not with no end time to it.
Lovely, good stuff, good. Do you think it is always the more mature person mentoring the younger person? Is there a space for younger people mentoring older people?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, hospitality is changing. The business is evolving. It's a completely different space. And if you look at our workforce, the younger generation is our workforce.
Yes.
And, we need to learn from them what they want and how do we structure ourselves going forward. So absolutely, there's space for that. And there are a lot of big companies which are doing that anyways.
Yeah, the reverse mentoring.
Yeah.
Thank you. Good. So I wonder if we have any questions. I haven't seen any questions coming in. I've just checked if we've got any questions, but we're nearly up to time. So if you do have any questions, please put them in the chat box or the question box. Now, any questions for our lovely panelists? And I'd also like to be thinking about what advice you'd give to anybody out there listening to this MIDAS production in terms of getting a mentor or being a mentee. What's the one piece of advice you'd give them? I'll come around each of you individually. So what piece of advice would you give to anybody who was looking to get a mentor? James, what piece of advice would you give?
I would suggest, if it's me you're asking a question to, I think personally, I mean, at any level, it is so useful to have a friend that you can confide in. It's awkward to go to your boss or your owner and share concerns and worries. You just don't want to expose yourself like that. And I think by having someone that's a friend in the industry where you can share some of those concerns or worries, or even want to ask simple questions, I think it's a really good process.
Good, thank you very much. One piece of advice, James. Oh, James O'Keefe. Sorry, I just realised there's two Jameses. That's very stupid of me. Sorry.
I would look to utilize whatever resources around. So Institute of Hospitality Master Inn holders being able to reach out into that network and have that little bit of framework just to get you going and get you started.
Good.
I think if you're new to a mentor-mentee relationship as the mentee, you can perhaps, as someone mentioned earlier, slightly underestimate what's required and what needs to be put in. So having that formalized framework at the beginning will help you get off really strong. And I mean, over time, you might end up with 2, 3, 4 mentors that someone works with you at one part, but you stay in touch with them all over time and it builds up, and that's how your network grows.
Great, lovely, thank you. So it's not a once a lifetime thing, you can add to it and keep going. Fantastic. Michael? Piece of advice would you give?
Yeah, as I said, having the structure and understanding what the objectives are, I think, and having defined periods, I think is quite important. I think because I think where the mentoring relationship ends, it could be the beginning of, as James said, friendship and long-lasting relationships, and then you move on from a objective driven relationship to friendship, coaching, helping, advising, that can go on forever, really. But I think so. The structure, I think, is very important. And as James actually mentioned in our relationship, I think talking values quite early on, I think, in mentoring relationship, I think is actually quite important, because not so much in personal values, but I think really understanding, trying to bring, the mentee to really understand what their personal values are, and how those can be actually matched to the company values, where they're working, where they want to go in future. I think is quite important. There's a tendency, we get into a job because, maybe we are in the right place at the right time, and then we start, dreaming about the next career move. And unless you can completely tally your personal values with your future careers, I think that there might be opportunities where you wish you might make the wrong move. So actually steering that conversation towards value and inner reflect about who you are and where you want to go, I think is quite important for me.
Thank you. If anyone is interested in that part of the conversation, on the last workshop, we did put a values list that's accessible if you go back on the list again, because I believe that too. I see lots of people who are unhappy in a job because their values are being compromised. It's really important. The job may be, the job is a job, but if the values are being compromised, it's really quite difficult to be happy. Thank you. Jonathan, bit of advice for mentees?
Yeah, I think it's really important to establish some kind of structure. I've had to cancel 1 or 2 appointments that I've had set with Nitan, but there has to be an understanding. Right now we're all busy people, but a structure of some sort that works. So if you want to do it via email, make sure that the mentee knows it. If you prefer phone calls, WhatsApp, whatever it is, I think that's really important. Again, the relationship I have in this particular instance is very strong. I think if you can like the person, if there's some sort of friendship there, it really helps as well. And perhaps if it doesn't, then the mentee or mentor should close it down sooner rather than later. I think otherwise these things can go on for weeks and months, and you're both trying to make it work when actually, it doesn't work. So I think there has to be that bond. So what I would say, have a structure, have something that works both ways. I'm understanding that either one may have to cancel because of work pressures, and sort of lastly, and not negatively, it's positive, it isn't working, don't stay with it. There's no point. And something like the master, 100+ mastering holders, and you'd like a mentor, then ask for someone else. That particular mentor shouldn't be upset by that, will probably feel the same way. So I think it is so important. I think right now mental well-being and our minds are being stretched to the full, so it's probably never been more important. But have the right person.
Good, thank you. And trust your instincts about that. Trust your own instincts. If it doesn't feel right, then it's not right. The same as with any other relationship, really. Thank you. Peter, piece of advice?
Piece of advice. Mine would be from the get-go, honesty. Honesty is key. And, for me as a mentee, I wanted to go into the whole thing and be very honest and open with yourself, accept your flaws, accept where you're not doing well or what you're lacking in, because that's what your mentor's there for. They're there to guide you, they're there to help you, they're there to see you through, to make you a better or a rounded individual. Like for me, example, with the F&B side of it. I was very honest with James. I was, my palate isn't where it should be for a DGM. Please, can you help me? And every step of the way, every month, we've been dining left, right, centre.
Good stuff. Well done. Good. And last but by no means least, Nitan, piece of advice.
from my point of view, I think it's very important to be clear what you want out of the relationship. You know, having a mentor, you have an opportunity to have a mentor. Please use this opportunity. It's not just about having a mentor and you go for it because somebody's told you to. You really need to be clear about what you want from that person, and it's your responsibility at the end of the day. You know, it's you who's responsible for your own development, so make the most of it. There's a lot of noise around hospitality right now. It's very easy to get distracted. You need somebody with safe hands where you can just go and confide. You can go away from the noise and get a different perspective. We can all be very busy. We are all very busy, but you have to commit to the relationship and actually reach out to your mentor on a timely basis.
Good. Thank you very much. So on behalf of Master Inn holders and myself personally, thank you very much for giving up your afternoons to talk to us about all things mentoring. I'm going away with a very warm glow about just what a wonderful career, what a wonderful industry we work in, and how generous spirited you all are and we all are in hospitality. So if you want to find a mentor who's generous and warm spirited through the Master Inn holders, then please get in touch with us through the website www.masterinholders.co.uk. And as I say, if you're in wider hospitality, not in hotels, then the Institute of Hospitality will also be very pleased to hear from you. So if you're wondering if you should get a mentor, please do go and get one. You've heard from all these lovely people just what a great experience it is. So thank you very much for giving up your afternoon for us, for rushing back from your travels, and for giving us your time. It's been a pleasure.